The first $100,000 is a bitch, but you gotta do it. That wasn't a YouTuber. That wasn't a TikTok finance bro. That was billionaire investor Charlie Munger. And when someone worth billions says the first 100K is the hardest part, we should probably listen. Because if you've ever tried saving money and felt like you're running on a treadmill that never moves, you're not crazy. You're just stuck in the hardest phase of wealth building. You start strong. You cut expenses, you skip takeout, you save your first $1,000, then $3,000, maybe even $8,000. And then life hits. Car repair, medical bill, rent increase. Suddenly, your progress disappears. It feels like climbing Mount Everest, only to slide back down every time you get close to the top. What nobody tells beginners is this: the early stage of investing feels slow because it is slow, painfully slow. And that flat part of the graph has a name: the Valley of Disappointment. It's the flat part of the graph where your effort feels bigger than your results. But here's the good news: that flat line doesn't stay flat forever. There's a turning point, a moment where your money starts working harder than you do. And that turning point is around $100,000. Today, we're breaking down why that number matters and how you can reach it faster than you think.
Let's talk about the real enemy holding you back. It's not your job. It's not your boss. It's not even inflation. The real enemy in the beginning is math. Specifically, the lack of compound interest when your account balance is small. Compound interest is like a snowball rolling downhill. When it's tiny, it barely picks up snow. But once it gets big, every roll adds more and more. The problem: most people quit pushing the snowball before it gets big enough to roll on its own. Here's another way to see it. Think of your financial life like launching a rocket into space. Rockets use about 90% of their fuel just to escape Earth's gravity. That's the hardest part. That's your first 100K. Once the rocket is in space, it barely needs fuel to keep moving. When you only have $5,000 invested, a 10% return is just $500 in a year. That's one car repair. That's gone in a second. But when you have $100,000 invested, that same 10% is $10,000 in a year. That's a raise without asking your boss. So if you've been working hard and your net worth still looks small, it's not because you're failing. It's because you're still on the launch pad burning fuel. The system is working. You're just early in the process.
Let's make this real with numbers. Say you invest $500 per month. That's $6,000 per year. Not easy, but possible for someone serious about building wealth. If you earn an average 8% return, reaching your first $100,000 takes about 11 years. 11. That's why most people quit. Now here's where it gets interesting. Once you hit $100,000, your money starts doing more of the work. If you keep investing that same $500 per month, it takes only about 7 more years to reach $200,000. The second 100K is much faster than the first. And the jump from $200,000 to $1 million takes around 15 more years with the same monthly investment. Notice something? The first 100K took 11 years. The next 900K takes about 22. The growth curve bends upward. This is the boring truth no one on social media wants to sell you. Wealth isn't usually built in one lucky trade. It's built in thousands of small, consistent investments that feel pointless until suddenly they're powerful. Sure, someone out there made $1 million on crypto. Someone else won the lottery. But for every one of them, there are millions of people who lost money chasing shortcuts. The math of steady investing works for almost everyone. The math of gambling works for almost no one. Let's break the illusion. If you start with $0 and invest $500 per month, after 1 year, you'll have around $6,500. After 5 years, maybe $36,000. Still feels small, but between years 10 and 15, growth explodes.
That's compounding finally kicking in. This is why the first phase feels unfair. You are doing most of the work. Later, your money does most of the work. The early years are about discipline. The later years are about momentum. So the goal of the first 100K isn't luxury, it's escape velocity. It's reaching the point where your investments start growing faster than your savings alone. That's when the game changes.
Now let's talk about how to reach 100K faster. Because while time matters, your savings rate matters more. Accelerator number 1, increasing your income through job hopping. Staying at the same job for years means small 3% raises. Switching jobs can mean 15 to 30% jumps. If you earn $50,000 and switch to a job paying $65,000, that's an extra $15,000 per year. Even if you invest just half of that raise, $7,500 per year, you more than double your investing speed. That could cut your journey to 100K by 3 to 4 years. Accelerator number 2, house hacking. This means renting out a room, a basement, or buying a small duplex and living in one unit while renting the other. Your housing is usually your biggest expense. Reducing it is like giving yourself a massive raise. If your rent is $1,200 and house hacking brings it down to $400, that's $800 saved every month. That's $9,600 per year. Invest that, and you shave years off your path to 100K. Housing hacks can cut the timeline almost in half. Accelerator number 3, the 50-30-20 rule, but upgraded. Traditional advice says spend 50% on needs, 30% on wants, and save 20%. But if your goal is fast wealth building, flip it. Aim for saving and investing 30% or more. If you earn $4,000 per month and raise your investing from 20% to 30%, that's an extra $400 per month invested. That alone can cut 2 to 3 years off your 100K timeline. Small percentage changes create massive long-term impact. None of these accelerators require you to be rich. They require strategy, income growth, housing strategy, and higher savings rate. Stack all 3, and your first 100K could come in 6 to 8 years instead of 11. Here's the big idea. The first 100K is survival mode. It's the grind. It's discipline without applause. It's you versus math. But after 100K, the game changes. Your money starts pulling its weight. The pressure eases. Momentum builds. Most people never reach this stage, not because they're not capable, but because they quit in the valley of disappointment. They think the system doesn't work, but the truth is they stopped right before the curve turned upward. If you stay consistent, increase your income, control your biggest expenses, and invest regularly, the math becomes your ally instead of your enemy. That's when wealth stops feeling impossible and starts feeling inevitable. So remember this line from Charlie Munger. The first 100K is brutal, but it's also the most important because once you do it, you prove you can win the hardest level of the money game. Everything after that gets easier. If you're serious about hitting your first 100K faster and learning how money really works, hit the subscribe button and join this journey with us. Because building wealth isn't about being lucky, it's about staying in the game long enough for compounding to finally reward you.